Hello, Vancouver. We're here today with Pat Jollota for another episode of Hello History.
Hello, History.
And today we're going to talk about a POW camp that was here in Vancouver during World War II. So, Pat, you're saying that at Pearson Airfield here, we had a POW camp.
Yes, this is the first place they brought the POWs from Europe, was to the hangars and such at Pearson. Then later they built a cantonment farther north, about where Hudson's Bay High School is today.
And about what year was that?
They came here in 42.
42.
There were thousands upon thousands of POWs in Europe and no place to put them, no place to keep them. And here we were just coming into the war, and we had the room for them. So they brought there were a couple hundred Italian prisoners of war first.
So it was Italians who were here?
First. They were so happy to be out of the war. They didn't care for the Nazis at all. And here they were. And they hated our food, though.
Really?
Oh, our food was not to their... Corn on the cob, blech.
No.
The worst of the worst was pumpkin pie. That just went straight into the garbage without even being sliced.
Fantastic. So what did they do?
What did they do? We sat down with their officers, with our officers, and Geneva Convention, they had been getting the same food our GIs were getting. So they said, look, just give us some flour and some oil, tomatoes. We'll make our own stuff.
Okay.
And pretty soon these wonderful aromas came floating out of the POW mess.
Huh.
And the soldiers, American soldiers, always being one to take advantage of a situation, found out that if they did a favor for a POW, they would be invited to dinner. Pretty soon the POWs aren't doing much except cooking, and our guys are eating well. And they said, you know, if we charged 50 cents, we'd have enough to get wine.
Excellent.
Which is what they did.
And so it sort of became like Vancouver's first Italian restaurant.
First Italian restaurant. With the real thing being here. And they would escape.
They'd escape?
Escape a lot. A lot. Usually on Friday evenings.
Interesting.
And they would escape and go to the USO, which was just over on West Reserve.
Okay.
And have a dance, talk to girls, have a Coke. And the MPs would come, gather them up, and as punishment, they were taken to Camp Bonneville.
Okay. And what did they do there?
Well, a lot of them were stonemasons, and they taught other prisoners to be stonemasons, and all of the fireplaces, barbecues, everything like that at Camp Bonneville was made by POWs from our camp.
Wow.
Then, of course, in 1943, Italy surrendered and switched sides, came in on our side.
Right.
Now, they're not POWs anymore.
So
they're co-belligerents.
Co-belligerents.
Or non-combatant aliens.
Okay.
Now, so they could get a job. Now, under the Geneva Convention, they could not work, as POWs, they could not work in defense work.
Okay.
But as non-combatant aliens, they could, so a lot of them went to work at the shipyard.
Oh.
And we had a labor shortage. Our guys are off and gone to war. And they went to work on farms, just basically around. Everybody knew them. They were nice young men.
They were the Italians.
And they were good looking. I have seen one photograph of the POWs, and that was a group photograph, kind of looking like a high school class picture with their dogs. I counted 2 dogs. And that was in the Grant House Museum collection, when the Grant House was a museum. And it disappeared somewhere in the moving, and I have no idea. If anyone knows where that photograph is, I would love to see it again.
Absolutely.
And there were girls. There were girls.
Vancouver girls?
Vancouver girls. And handsome young men that we had imported just for them.
Sounds like the 40s were pretty good to Vancouver.
I talked to one young woman whose mother had fallen in love with one of the soldiers and had been smuggled into the camp at night by one of the guards. And, of course, the usual thing happened. She got pregnant, and then the war ended. Now, when the war ended for the POWs, they had to go back to Italy.
Right.
They were, after all, aliens, and they had to be repatriated. And many of them didn't want to go. They would hide, took MPs, put them on the train, sent them out to San Francisco, and then boated back. By that time, this young woman was pregnant. And her daughter found, after she passed away, her daughter found letters from this fellow in Italy The family always knew the older brother was different, but they never knew exactly why. But that was when he found out.
Wow.
That his father had been a POW. And he immediately went to Italy and found the father had died, but he met siblings he did not know he had.
That's fantastic.
So all of the war came down to two people.
Yeah.
And a baby. And when the Italians were now non-combatant aliens, we had other combatants. We had the Germans to fight.
So
German POWs came in.
So
they didn't care for our food. We didn't care for theirs. They weren't as friendly.
Well, they were German.
They were German, and they didn't have any relatives in San Francisco.
Right.
And they were put into work detail at the Army Hospital, at Barnes Hospital, which is now the Veterans Administration. And they worked there until the war was over, and then they too were repatriated.
It's fantastic.
I talked to one some years ago, and I said, okay, so you escaped. You escaped as far as the USO. And he said, where was I going to go?
Right.
Mexico was on our side. Canada is actively fighting us. My nearest ally was Japan.
That'd be a long swim.
A long swim. On Veterans Day, on Memorial Day, we decorate the graves of all the soldiers in the post cemetery. And if you go up there, you will see German flags, Italian flags, and Russian flags. And those are on the graves of those soldiers who were here during World War II and who died. And one, Vicencio di Giarno, I'm probably messing up that name, was killed in a traffic accident. He was driving an Army Jeep in Portland doing Christmas shopping when he rear-ended a truck.
Oh, no.
And it was not long after that the war was over and everyone went home, except Vincent, who was in our cemetery here. In the barracks, when the National Park Service was going through them, they found a wooden locker, and on the inside was a note from an Italian prisoner of war. And it said, to the peoples, I am a POW, I have been here for years, you couldn't read that part. Tomorrow, I go home to Sicily. I have much happiness. Thank you, peoples, for all you did for us. I leave this for the next soldier to take my bed.
Well, Pat, thank you so much for joining us and telling us about the POW camp that held Italians and then Germans here in Vancouver during World War II.
Thank you. It was fun.
We'll see you next time.